England has several unfolding out of control coronavirus hotspots from the Midlands upwards. We got Birmingham, Leicester, Nottingham, the whole of the northwest, and then the whole of the northeast. Sunderland, Newcastle, Liverpool, Manchester, and of course Yorkshire, where we got the hotspots of York, Bradford, Leeds, round Doncaster, and of course Sheffield. Look at Sheffield. It wasn't so long ago we'd single out Rotherham for not following the COVID, the social distancing rules. Just to tell them to stop faffing about and follow the rules, but now look at Sheffield. Just as bad, if not worse. So that's where Sheffield currently stands. We're a hotspot, a COVID hotspot, just as bad as anywhere else. Just as bad as Manchester. Maybe not as bad as this area. Look at that. Or the northeast. But we're not far off. Sheffield is definitely a coronavirus hotspot. Look at that. All of the areas. Healy, Darnell, in fact most of the city. The only bit that's so far not so bad is the industrial area to the north, Tinsley, Winkerbank, and the affluent areas, but they're not far behind. That's affluent. It's that Fulwood and Cliff, yeah, that's an affluent area. And here we have Healy's up and coming, Brincliffe affluent, Broomall, no, that's city centre. Where's Ecclesall? Ecclesall. So basically the southwest, the affluent areas, are doing better than the rest of the city, but they're not far behind. Walkley's doing okay, but they've got low population anyway. They're not going to be high, these areas, but the southwest is doing okay, whilst the others are less populated. Handsworth is a hotspot, coming hotspot, but Darnell, all of the central and poorer areas, but is spreading fast. The virus is spreading right across the city. A week ago, all of these would have been this colour. All this area would have been this colour, and maybe Darnell as well, and all this. Just this part would have been this colour, blue, light blue. Well, it's dark blue. These would have been light blue, but it's changed in 1 week. A week from now, all this will be dark blue. So Sheffield is definitely a coronavirus hotspot. And it won't be next week. These areas will be the same. Whilst this map is for the cases to the 5th of October, the current situation as of 10th of October has Sheffield on 523 cases per 100,000 population, the highest in South Yorkshire. Sheffield and much of the rest of South Yorkshire is heading for a near total lockdown, with only really the schools remaining open to prevent total economic paralysis. Pubs and clubs will definitely soon close, with restaurants greatly restricted to the extent of their operations to just deliveries and takeaways only. How does Sheffield compare against the rest of the country? Well, the average for England is just 155 cases per 100,000, which is still a lot, still very high. And the so-called corona hotspots of Manchester and Liverpool and the northwest that have already been in lockdowns for several weeks average about 500 cases per 100,000. So Sheffield at 523 is already in the same league, which means a lockdown is imminent. I'm only surprised the City Council has not already implemented one, given where Sheffield currently stands, which is why I keep calling it a Sheffield City Council. What about compared to the heights of the pandemic in April 2020? Well, at that point, Sheffield was running at about 900 to 1,000 cases per 100,000. Remember, they weren't testing people then, so We don't know exact number, but it was roughly 900 to 1,000. So we are less than one doubling event away from being back to the peak of the pandemic in terms of the number of cases, with deaths tending to spike about 3 weeks later. So it's no wonder the government is expected to announce new panic lockdown measures on Monday to come in force Wednesday. Again, just like the case in March 2020, it's too little, too late. And what's worse is that summer is 6 months away, which means we look set for the bleak COVID winter.
The virus has started to spread again in an exponential way. Infections are up, hospital admissions are climbing. We risk many more deaths. We will enforce those rules with tougher penalties and fines of up to £10,000. We will put more police out on the streets and use the army to backfill if necessary. If people don't follow the rules we've set out, then we must reserve the right to go further. We must take action now, because a stitch in time saves 9.
UK second wave coronavirus daily cases trend forecast. The number of people testing positive has started to soar, doubling from 3,000 a week ago to the latest released data of 6,178. Furthermore, the ONS estimates that there are approximately 110,000 people across the UK that are infected right now, which would imply that the actual number of infected per 100,000 is around 170, as against the official figure of just 40. So 4 times the official number are infected right now in the UK. However, the current situation is not quite as dire as the graph suggests, for the fundamental reason that, as I mentioned before, barely 1/20 of those infected were being tested during April, i.e. only those already ill ended up in hospital were being tested at that time. So during the first pandemic wave, as many as 100,000 were catching the virus each day, though of course not everyone infected is being tested right now. Probably about half the infected are being tested, so the actual number infected per day is around 12,000. And therefore, as per my original March analysis, I was expecting the second wave to ultimately end up being about half that of the first wave, which means to expect this wave to peak at just below 50,000 cases per day at, say, around 42,500 per day, assuming that the first wave's peak was at 100,000 per day. Anyway, we are likely to see today's official figures of 6,200 positive cases per day increase at least 7-fold to about 42,500 per day, which, given the trend trajectory of doubling roughly every 7 days, though which I expect to slow each week during October as the government issues ever more panicked lockdown orders and measures across the growing number of regions, then the following number of people tested positive each day by these dates is likely, i.e. 42,500 by the 29th of October. So I'm expecting the number of cases to be nudging above 42,500 by the end of October, before stabilizing in response to a series of measures to be announced over the coming weeks as the government effectively presses the panic button, where a deviation against the forecast trend will act as an important indicator of relative economic strength or weakness. Shala's off to Royal Hallamshire Hospital for X-ray and blood test. Was it 7th?
What?
7th of July?
Yeah.
So if you get infected, it's from Royal Hampshire. Here it is, Royal Hampshire. Gone good 5 months without getting infected. 4 or 5 months. So let's see what happens there. Did you get blood test done? Why? What? Why they give you appointment for $4 then? They give you appointment for when it's closed. What about X-ray? Did you have X-ray done? So when you went to reception, what happened? When you went to the reception desk, 4:20 p.m. what did they say? Did you say a blood test? So why do you tell them blood test?
With X-ray department, so I got X-ray book for 4:20, so I have to go there first, innit?
You booked for, and then they sent you for blood test.
They didn't say, okay, yeah, you can go back. And I said, Dr. Sani, you said, okay,
They knew it'd be closed, they worked there.
the doctor didn't know. They booked the X-ray, they didn't know he was blood test.
Did you tell them you got a blood test? Or did you, when you tell the doctor you had a blood test?
When I finished my X-ray, I said, septic, I need to go for the blood test.
When you went first, why didn't you say you got X-ray and blood test?
Did I know it's going to happen?
Well, when you went there...
When I asked the doctor, I'm going for X-ray, I said, where is the blood test? They said, oh, they'll send you for blood. Go for X-ray and then they'll send you for blood test.
They work there, they know it closes at 4:30.
Doctor didn't.
The appointment was 4:20 for X-ray and blood test, and 4:30 they closed. So we went for X-ray first. How long did X-ray take?
Then you won't get there, 25 past.
So what did X-ray show? What?
Huh?
What did X-ray show?
Wait. Mom.
Well, they don't tell you the results.
There's some people in there and you're doing the same.
Why didn't they just tell you? What do you mean they just look at it? So now you have to call GP up. They're supposed to tell you. You saw a doctor in it. You're supposed to look at the X-ray. You're supposed to look at the X-ray and tell you if anything's wrong. They didn't do that. They just took X-ray and what they said. No blood test, and they had X-ray and they didn't tell you what it is. NHS, you're still useless. There's a lot of people empty. So even when it's empty, they're useless. That's NHS. Useless when full, useless when empty.